You're listening to the B&H Photography Podcast. For over 40 years, B&H has been the professional source for photography, video, audio, and more. For your favorite gear, news, and reviews, visit us at bnh.com or download the B&H app to your iPhone or Android device. Now here's your host, Alan Weitz.
Greetings and welcome to the B&H Photography Podcast. Chris Gunn is an editorial, documentary, and fine art photographer based in Washington, D.C. He's also a contract photographer for the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center, and he has what must be one of the coolest gigs a gearhead photographer can land. For the past 10 years, he's been documenting the construction of the James Webb Space Telescope, which is destined to take over for the Hubble as NASA's most powerful telescope. Chris's work has appeared in National Geographic, The Atlantic, and many other national and international publications, and he's joining us today via Skype. Also joining us today is our very own in-house space cadet, Todd Vornkamp. Todd is an in-house writer who has written many stories about astrophotography and all the gear that's related to it. Welcome to our show.
Thanks for having me.
So great having you. We have, I think, more questions today than we've had for many guests for a while. You got a lot of people who are interested in this stuff.
It's a white paper.
Yeah, literally. Let's just start off. You say that you refer to yourself as a technician rather than an artist. You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
You know, I initially started referring to myself as a technician, kind of as a backlash to a colleague who referred to me as an artist, kind of like, well, you don't really fit in. Your work is too artistic for this environment. And, I kind of took a step back and said, okay, so I see what he's saying. And maybe to flourish in this technical environment, I have to sort of reinvent myself and let people know the technical power of photography and how it fits into such a technical environment.
So do you think that being engineers, they look at what photographers do in a way as folly? That's what I'm kind of. It's sort of like we're doing serious stuff, and you're kind of like playing around here and just on the sidelines. That's what it's kind of sounds like. Am I wrong?
Well, so I would not say it that way, because a lot of the engineers are actually photographers.
Sure. Yeah,
and I think they really appreciate. If you understand the technology behind photography, if you will, right? So if you come in as an artist, they might not look at you the same way as if you talk their language. How did talk like you know what you're talking about. So if you're talking to a technologist or an engineer that is a photographer, if you let him know that you know your stuff, then there's a degree of respect that's there.
I get
and then
that.
you sort of the art of photography comes out after they see an image that you make, and they're like, "Wow,
there you go.
How'd you do that?" You know what I mean? So
yeah, you do. You have to kind of prove yourself there. But let me ask: did you, with this attitude and or kind of the need to take on that attitude or that kind of label or whatever you want to call it, persona, did it bring a change in your work, or did you already kind of go into it knowing that the kind of style you wanted to present?
No, I don't think it changed my work at all, to be honest. I think that you're constantly evolving as a photographer. At least I have. When I first came to NASA, before I started shooting actual hardware, I was doing more public affairs style stuff. A lot of headshots, a lot of group photos, a lot of award ceremonies.
Grip and grin.
Grip and grin, exactly. So occasionally there would be a call for a really cool image of a spacecraft, and I'd go into a clean room for 15 minutes and get my shot and leave. And I was one of the only photographers that was shooting digitally at that time, right? So
but was that
I could get my stuff
medium format digital at that point?
No, it wasn't. No. Actually, it was. We're talking 20 years ago, so we're talking about Kodak 460.
Oh,
okay.
Right? Yeah, okay.
All right.
So they had a Kodak 460 that the battery had been depleted, and you could get 15 shots before the battery died.
You're right.
But it was perfect because I was used to shooting medium format photography, so it was like shooting a roll of 120 12 shots, right? And so anyway, I get my shots, and I might light it. And so I always took the extra step, and people started to notice that. And that's how I got on the side, on the more technical side of Goddard.
Okay. So maybe we should step back a second because,
Yep.
you know, you got 20 years, like you just said, and, you know, the whole thing has been an evolution, and obviously now you're kind of, you know, fully ensconced with the James Webb program. But
one of the things I'm curious about is, like, how did you find out about this job? Because obviously this was not on Craigslist.
Well, I mean, it wasn't on Craigslist, but I think it was in the paper.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How wide did your eyes pop open when you saw this? Because this is a really unique job.
So the eyes pop, and then I'm like, you know what? I can do this. You know, I'm like, I mean, everything that they listed there, I was like, I mean, I can handle that. It's awesome. So of course I took my work, and I didn't have obviously the material that they. Or I didn't have the types of things in my portfolio.
You didn't have a portfolio of aircraft.
Exactly. but they could see the quality of the work, right? And like I said, when I first came on, it was more editorial based, and you know, a lot of headshots and that kind of thing. They saw all that in my work. They saw the magazine work. They saw the hip hop artists that I shot. You know what I mean? So they saw the quality though. I think that was obvious, and landed the job.
Why don't you have that stuff on your website? Is it just something that over the time you kind of now you want to identify yourself as this photographer, or you know?
You mean curious. My early work?
Yeah. Or other projects, all the other stuff you've done. Yeah.
I have really decided that I love shooting technology. You know, I love shooting space.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's just, you know, I've been doing it for the longest period of time. And the position, the job where I am has really allowed me to explore this area. So, yeah, it's just something I really love, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay.
And to say that I wasn't connected to the previous work would not be totally honest, but it wouldn't be a lie either, you know? I often found myself shooting things that, yeah, I'm not really into this, but I gotta make these images. But now I'm really, really connected to what I'm shooting.
And can you maybe then explain a little bit how, I mean, you describe yourself as a contract photographer and how that works, but you've obviously been there a long time and you've evolved into this very specific role. So maybe talk about that a little bit, and also, you know, your general responsibilities, you know, as like on a day-to-day basis or on a project basis.
Of course. So 50 years ago, of course, NASA photographers were government employees. So they actually worked for NASA. And I think there were probably dozens of photographers. There are a few that are pretty famous for their Apollo images, kind of nameless, but famous nonetheless. But there is probably only one government NASA photographer right now. The rest of us that shoot for NASA are contract photographers. So we work for outside companies that have contracted with NASA for our services.
Okay. All right.
So that's how that works.
Gotcha. Interesting. And and then like on that follow up with the, you know, want to describe kind of, do you go into the office every day? I mean, now you're in California, but is it kind of a day-to-day thing where you always kind of be on site, or how's that work?
It's a day-to-day thing. Yeah. So, and that's why I'm here in California, because the spacecraft is actually here now. So I'm always on call for photography and spend a lot of my day in the clean room, making photographs of the activities that are going on. When I'm at Goddard, I'm also working on a few other projects. Oftentimes they call me in for, you know, what they might call the beauty shots, or the really cool slick shots that might go out to the public. And that's what, you know, that's where I really like to shine. That's where I really like to, you know.
Well, that work's incredible. I mean, we want to talk more about that. But go ahead, Todd.
Chris, you just referred to the James Webb Space Telescope as a spacecraft, which it is. Right. Folks call it a space telescope, but in the Atlantic article, you refer to it as an observatory. And that's the first time I've seen anyone use that term.
So that is the technical term for So let's break down a few break down a few terms here. So the James Webb Space Telescope has a few components, right? So there is the optical portion, and there is the spacecraft, and the spacecraft includes basically the little booster rockets, station keeping rockets that sort of keep it in position and that sort of thing. It also includes the sun shield, right? Whereas the optical portion is the pretty portion that everybody knows with the mirrors, right? The 6.5 meter mirror that is James Webb's basic, the image that everybody knows. So has a couple portions. When you put it all together, it's an observatory, just like the Griffith Observatory.
Gotcha.
Right. So it's a space-based observatory, but it is an observatory.
All right. Nice.
That's a good answer. And maybe just to stay on this theme a little bit, can you talk a little bit about the differences with the Hubble? And obviously, it's a giant area that, we're asking you to encapsulate, but anything that distinguishes it in that sense?
So two major differences are size, obviously, right? The size and the spectrum, the wavelength that it's imaging. So the wavelength of the spectrum. So to Hubble, I think it's a 2.5 or 2.4 meter mirror, whereas Webb's mirror is 6.5 meters, right?
So
and
that's a quantum leap of magnification, then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're and I think the major difference is that Hubble is visible light, whereas the James Webb Space Telescope has infrared capabilities primarily, right? And it has 4 different instruments. One is the fine guidance sensor. That's not really one of the cameras per se, and the other 3 are the near spec, near cam, and MIRI are all infrared instruments. So it's going to peer back further than Hubble, and it's going to be able to look through a lot of those dust clouds, and it'll be able to see actual planet formation. So if you think about the observatory or the telescope as a time machine, it's going to look back about 13.5 billion years.
Wow. Now, talking about a time machine, as you're describing this, I realized that just during the construction of this vehicle, of this observatory, technologies change very quickly, and this has been going on for quite some time. Have there been any major changes since the beginning of this project, whereas some of the original equipment and projects that were going on have already been eclipsed by newer technologies which are better? So is this, how much evolution is going on while it's being developed and finalized?
So I think it's a good question, and I'm probably not the one to answer it
Then be creative.
The way I look at it is a lot of technologies were actually invented for this telescope, right? For example, one of the instruments has micro shutters, right? So these are microscopic shutters that are able to open and close to reveal portions of the sky, right? And black out certain portions for better observations. So these technologies have taken time to refine, and they haven't actually been eclipsed because they're continuing to develop them for the next telescope, which might take another 10 years, gotcha. Right? Mm-hmm. So I think that it's right. It's at everything that's been developed for it is right on time.
Maybe we can talk a little bit about the technology vis-a-vis the cameras, though, that you're using, and maybe some of the changes that you've put into your own work, since you started this. Have you been shooting with Hasselblad since the beginning?
So that's a great question. So when I first started at NASA, believe it or not, we were still shooting film. Mm-hmm. There was that one Nikon DCS 460 or whatever. There were Hasselblad cameras. Occasionally I'd shoot Hasselblad film. But as I migrated over to the more technical end, where the spacecrafts were being built, I insisted on shooting digitally primarily. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, full frame DSLR cameras. When Webb instruments began to be delivered, Webb mirrors, I realized at that point that I needed to step up to medium format, primarily because I didn't want any distortion in any of these images. I needed to be able to control perspective. I needed a lot of these images were being pushed out for publications, so I needed higher resolutions. And that's when I reached out to Hasselblad for a demo. Mm-hmm. And first demoed the H5D50C, the 50 megapixel camera. Mm-hmm. And it was a game changer in terms of how I work, because of course it slowed me down, but I was also able to produce images that were better.
Just on a kind of thing, speed's really never been a big issue for, I would say, most of what you're doing. Is that a correct assumption?
Right. You mean speed in terms of shooting images?
Yeah. You don't have to crank. You don't need 20 frames a second for what you're doing. Am I?
No, you don't. But in terms of like being able to produce images that I think were elevated to, let's say, a level of art, or images that just were more, how can I put it? Allow me to, pre-visualize and just sort of, what's the word?
Create.
Thank you.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. The medium format just simply, it allows you to do that a lot easier for me. Because I think that's because that's what I grew up on. I grew up shooting 4x5 medium format.
And did you, when this time came when you're incorporating the medium format, and did you have to speak it over with, your bosses, whoever they happen to be, about, all right, this is my idea. I really want to kind of, as you said, turn this into more of an art piece, or as much as possible. And how's that balance work out where they're like, no, we just need this documented and, don't waste my time? Or is that conversation not happen?
Well, luckily the boss, the engineer that I spoke to that actually was helping to control those purse strings was actually a photographer, and he understood exactly what I was talking about.
Oh, that helps.
Of course.
Yeah. And, he understood that it was a huge investment, but he also had the understanding of what changes it would make in the imagery.
Right. Yeah. And how much free hand do you have on a day-to-day basis to set up the shots you want? And how does that process work, especially if you need to get engineers and scientists involved in the shot?
So I wear two hats. So I do a lot of technical photography, and that might be a shot of this bolt, right? Mm-hmm. Or this alignment from this piece to this piece, right? And but when it comes to actually making a photograph of the observatory that I think might go out to the public or be published, I pretty much have free reign, because I'm not dealing with any art directors or anything like that, right? So I'm waiting for the right time to make the right images.
Chris, are you shooting a photo of a bolt with a medium format camera, or you have?
I am not.
Okay. Are you using your iPhone or?
No, we're using full frame cameras. We're using Nikon, D5s, that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Okay. So you break out the medium format for the larger, more artistic work?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And are there other photographers on site or partners with you?
So I had a team of 3, and now we're a team of 2. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So just to get back into the gear thing for a second, you work in clean rooms frequently. I imagine for pretty much all of this, a lot of the stuff you're doing with the observatory, it's in clean rooms, which means everyone is in these basically space suits, enclosed space, and everything else. I'm assuming that your equipment has to be kept into a certain spec of cleanliness also. And that said, do you just keep a set of your gear in the clean room, or do you go back and forth and have to clean it every time you would go back in?
So anytime you remove it and bring it back in, it has to be cleaned. I travel and I bring gear in and out with me, or back and forth, to the East Coast and West Coast. So it has to be cleaned every time it enters the clean room. And we're wearing those, we call them bunny suits. Mm-hmm. And I've gotten, sort of used to wearing it now, but it's challenging to say the least.
Do I tell you, I wear one on New Jersey Transit, and I get a seat every time.
Do you really?
So it's very effective. Very.
So the cameras are actually wiped down with IPA, and it's an alcohol water mix, and They're looking for any particulates that might contaminate the spacecraft or that sort of thing.
Just to throw this out there, I was reading in one of the articles about this project that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the Spacecraft Systems Development and Integration Facility at 36,811.76 cubic meters is the largest clean room of its kind in the world. It's clean as an operating room.
That's the facility that I spent most of my time in.
Yeah,
it is. It's huge, and it's super clean. They just did a renovation, and
I mean, one of the things that stands out immediately when you see your work is this idea of scale. The size of what you're working on, and then talk a little bit about developing that look, because just there's the one shot, and I don't even know what it is. It's like the door of a chamber, and some scientists walking in front of it, and that's the one that comes to mind, but there's many. And how hard do you work to establish this sense of size and perspective?
It's important for me to like transmit how I feel to the viewer of the images. And, when I'm standing in a room with a chamber, I think you're talking about the Chamber A. That's actually the chamber that they tested Apollo missions in. And so we were there because it's the largest chamber that NASA has. So it's the only one that Webb would fit into, to be honest. But in terms of the technique, I mean, it's really lens selection, being able to place myself in a position where it all works, and I'm able to have all the scales correct, So it's just really important for me to convey that to the viewer of the images. Because if I don't, then you don't go wow when you see it. You know what I mean?
Oh, and you definitely do go wow. So, it's incredible. And do you have this, when you're there, do you still feel this kind of sense of awe in terms of the history and like we're talking about the scale and the size and the magnitude of these projects, or is that just you're punching in? Yeah, that's great.
No, every time. Every time you enter one of these facilities, especially the NASA facilities, you get a sense of the history that is in these places.
Just out of curiosity, it's the way my mind works. I look at your pictures and I'm listening to what you're saying about these monster things of scale. There used to be a shop here in New York. I forget the name of it, but they used to sell things like 3-foot tall paper clips and 6-foot pencils. Did you ever get tempted to bring one of those things in and just mess with people's head with scale?
I would love to have a 6-foot pencil. Yes, to bring it to one.
Leave it around.
Yes.
Photograph one of those bolts next to it and just let it go out there.
Lay it on the mirror.
But so what is the vibe there? I mean, is it very, very serious? And talk a little bit about how cooperative the engineers are when it's time to be photographed, and just getting them to kind of work with you.
It's serious. It's very serious because we're all working to put this thing into space and have it work and everything be flawless. You know what I mean? So it's very, very serious. But at the same time, we're like a big family. I have, so everyone knows everyone. We have meetings constantly. There's a daily meeting, for example, where we go over what's going to happen during the course of a day. Out here at Space Park, it's 5:30 a.m. That's when that daily meeting is. But everyone is in a good mood at that time, and we talk about what's going to happen. And I don't necessarily chime in and say, "Hey, this is what I'll be photographing," or "This is what I'll try to do." I just sort of sit back, listen to what's going to happen. They'll let me know if they need any technical photographic support, and I sort of build my creative flow around that.
Every day is a little different than you.
Every day is a little different, but some of these tasks take a really long time. So for example, the folding of the sun shield membrane that's happening right now, it's been going on for about a month, and that was expected.
And if let's say that whole process, you need to document it. I imagine you need to document it completely, but at the end of it, you may just have one medium format image that's going to serve that purpose, at least in terms of your
in terms of being pushed out to the public. Exactly. Yeah, maybe one or two. Exactly.
And then how many?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, just like around that, how many other images will you take?
It could range from hundreds to thousands, because we are also using time-lapse photography and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Interesting. Cut.
You were talking about how serious things were, and I hesitate to bring this up, but as a aviation space enthusiast, like you can't say the word Hubble without people immediately jumping to the flawed initial mirror and the mission to correct and all that stuff. So is there is there a Hubble hangover there, even though there's been a number of successful missions since then?
To Hubble? Right.
Yeah.
No, I don't think there's a Hubble hangover. It's even, I won't say it's worse than that, but this telescope is going out 1 million miles, right? So it cannot be serviced.
Right.
So it's not, that's one of the other major differences from Hubble. So it has to be perfect when it leaves here.
Right. No, I always wonder if there's this thing in the back of your head, like if you test the sun shield folding and unfolding 5 times and it works successfully on the ground, is the 6th time the one that's not going to work? And that's the one when it's in space or when the mirror unfolds. That's that would keep me up at night.
I don't think they think like that, but they do test everything and then they retest everything.
Right.
And everything does have a, like you're saying, sort of a life, but this telescope is built to last for 5 years in space, but that's the planned mission, but it could actually last many, many years beyond it.
Sure.
Okay, we're going to take a short break, and we come back more with Chris Gunn. Stay tuned.
We hope you're enjoying this edition of the B&H Photography Podcast. The best way to support the show is by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. For links to gear and more information on today's guests, check out the show notes in your podcast app or visit our homepage on the B&H Explorer website and join the B&H Photography Podcast Facebook group. And now, back to the show.
Okay, we are back. Before we continue with Chris, just a little backup here. John reminded me that we did, in fact, do a whole episode on the Hubble telescope a while back, and we had a couple of guests. Who are they again?
Yeah, this is going back, 3 years now. We had Dr. Jeff Hester, who was a member of the team that built the camera on the Hubble telescope, and is credited with taking that photo of Pillars of Creation.
Right.
So take a look for that episode in our archive. Yeah, we also had Zoltan LeVay on that episode, who is the imaging team leader at the Space Telescope Institute. So it really fits in well with this episode.
Yeah.
So take a
good complimentary show.
Right.
Okay. A lot of the photography you do, I imagine, is day in, day out kind of stuff. You could be photographing anything. It's basically documentation.
Right.
But a good deal of what you do is also rather challenging because of the scale or technical complexity. What's one of the more, or one or two of the more complex photographs that you've been faced and you've been able to pull off successfully?
One that comes to mind is a series of images that I've made inside of Chamber A, where the telescope was cryogenically tested. So the walls of the chamber were coated in basically a matte black coating. So it was just not for temperature control, obviously. It was also for light control. And it was basically, there was nothing, I had to light it. Mm-hmm. And it was a lot of light used. And I also had to pinpoint the area of the wall that was reflected into the mirror. And that's where I pumped the most of the light so that I could actually image the mirror. That image was pretty successful. I think one of those images ran in Nat Geo in 2019. That was pretty challenging. Anytime you're actually faced with photographing the mirror, you actually have to figure out what's being reflected in the mirror, right? So, which often means that you're chasing around the room trying to figure out what actually is being reflected in the mirror, and you have to light that. I've done a couple of time exposures. One in particular was almost a couple minutes, and the room was pretty dark, nothing but flashlights being used by the technicians. And basically, I had to go around the room and do some painting with light, but I had to find the portions of the wall that were reflected in the mirror again. And that was pretty challenging, but it was fun at the same time.
So do you have to be careful when using flash? Could you overload certain circuits or do damage by using certain lighting equipment?
So we have run tests on that. and it has been determined that we can't damage anything. So,
okay.
Good question, though.
You were talking about the mirrors and how you have to deal with those photographically. A lot of your images show folks inspecting the mirrors with the Mark I Mod 0 human eyeball and a flashlight. Is that the most bestest way to inspect these mirrors, or is there a laser and computer that does a final scan of it, or do you know more of that?
So the flashlight inspections are contamination inspections. Okay. So they're looking for particles or that sort of thing. The other inspection you're talking about, they do that. It's called wavefront sensing. So when this entire telescope was put together and the wings were fully deployed, they did basically shoot a laser at the mirror and then read the reflection in order to see how, figure out what the focus points were, basically.
Right. Is there
laser interferometry is what it's called.
Is there a non-human way of testing the mirrors for contamination before it's boxed up and put on the rocket? Or?
They do have non-human ways as well. But when these mirrors were first unboxed, the best way to do it, and I think the most fun for the contamination engineers was with the eyeballs.
Yeah. And what kind of lens cleaner do they use?
This would be the ultimate unboxing video as far as I'm concerned.
And for example, when you're talking about these pretty complicated testing processes, how do you try to conceptualize that, for your imagery? How do you try to, get a sense of, how do I say this? Documenting, narrating, and describing pretty complex processes, with one image.
It's difficult.
That's why you get the big bucks. I know.
but it, it really just starts with understanding what the processes are. So and once you understand what the processes are, or what the what the intention of the test are, what the engineers have in mind, you sit down and you talk to them and they explain what this test is supposed to do and what they're doing. And then you can come up with a concept that tells the story.
Yeah. Quick question also about the you're describing the flashlight tests in the dark and the time exposure. How cooperative are the engineers and scientists at that point when they know that you're doing yourself a relatively complex photo and they may need to do several takes, or is that just people skills and your time and experience there? You've developed relationships of people that are willing to work with you.
I think it's a lot of the latter. Just people skills and people really respecting what you do. But I think people understand that they're working on a mission that might change the way we look at the universe.
Right.
And they know that these images are going out and they want to be part of it.
That's great.
Yeah. So I really get a sense that everyone really wants to be in some of these images as well.
Is it possible to put a number on the size of the team, or like at least the core of the team that you work with every day, or that are on this project?
I'm going to say somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 or 500 people. But in terms of core that I might see every day, but there are many, many more people.
I'm sure. Yeah. Quick question about, I was reading that back in August, the two halves of the telescope were assembled, and I guess that's out there where you are. And was there a video team there to capture this? Because it would seem like any kind of thing where two things are coming together, and that reminds me of the episode we did on the anniversary of the Golden Spike, where the two trains came together.
Yeah.
In order to document that, do you have a video team there as well, or do you sometimes shoot video?
So,
that's totally separate. Right. Yeah.
No, well, I work closely with them, but I try not to shoot any video.
Gotcha.
The Goddard has an amazing video team led by Mike and Claire, and they shoot. They've been shooting video of the telescope as long as I've been shooting stills of the telescope.
Gotcha. Oh, that's great to have kind of partners there. And another question I had to do with the images themselves once they're completed, and how they decide and how you decide which ones do go out to the public and which ones may be, sent to Nat Geo or a magazine. and how much? Yeah, what's that collaboration like?
So again, I'm pretty much in control of the images in terms of selecting the images that have to go through an approval process to go public, right?
Okay.
And that puts me in a unique position so that you guys don't ever get a chance to see anything that I don't like. Right? So,
no, I mean, everything you're saying here makes it sound like you have pretty much the perfect photographic job. So
no, it's a good gig.
I've had the experience of working with art directors, and you send them a group of images, and they don't pick any of the ones that you like.
Yeah.
Right. So, from that perspective, I do like the fact that I get a chance to make selections. But then they have to go through an approval process, which goes from the contractors through NASA, and there's several different layers of approvals. It has to go through ITAR approval so that we're not releasing anything sensitive or proprietary and that sort of thing. And then once images pass through that process, they're made available to the public, usually on our Flickr site. And that's how that works.
Is there a security clearance that's needed on your end, like a government security clearance, or is it totally separate when you're working with NASA?
So, yes and no. I mean, there are different levels of security clearance, but yes, there's a level of clearance that's necessary.
Right. And kind of on the photographic side, because you're a contractor, and your work is getting published in prominent magazines, and I'm sure around the world. I've seen it on several websites.
Who owns your pictures?
Yeah, who owns them, and who's getting a licensing fee?
Good question.
Yeah,
no one's getting it. We all own them. No one's getting a licensing fee.
You mean all like the American people, or
does it become official NASA photographs?
The American people own the photographs. Yeah.
The taxpayers.
They're official NASA imagery. Yeah.
Okay.
Are you allowed to
get a credit?
Use them the way you want without? Are you allowed to profit by these, or are you just allowed to use them for your own personal use or non-profit?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I believe that you could actually. So I think you could profit from the images. So the images are public domain once they're out in the public.
Yeah. What about prints? And I want to ask that certainly about, because these could be in a gallery, and people would want to buy one of these prints at a large scale. When they're print sales, is that a little different? And I hope it is for your case and for you. But also, I've actually seen my photographs for sale on websites.
That must drive you nuts.
It's like,
what about organizing?
It's part of the deal. When I was on the Coast Guard, I took a photo of the aftermath of a Coast Guard helicopter crash, and you can go online and buy a wall print of that, or actually an embroidered pillow of that photograph.
How about a coffee mug?
You can get it on a coffee mug.
See, now we're talking.
That's outrageous. But
okay, so that's interesting. I would think that maybe in like we were talking about a gallery, there may be a little codicil in your contract that would allow you to make prints and sell them in that regard. But I did want to ask about prints, and when you're shooting, do you think of the prints that can be created from these images because they're gorgeous and they're huge, and why work in such a format like that if you're not going to kind of consider how big you can blow it up?
So I do actually. I mean, I come from that world. Right. So when I'm shooting, I'm always thinking about post-processing and making prints, and we have made prints. Right now, I mean, at both NASA and Northrop, there are images that are huge images that are displayed, and we are planning to do some gallery shows and that sort of thing. We're also planning to do some print pieces.
If anything, it's a huge PR thing for you, for NASA. I know that
it is.
Anytime I see an exhibit of, like, especially the moon photography, I stop, I look at it, because we're never going to these places. We're never seeing these places. This is all we have, are the photographs.
Exactly. And we've never seen anything like this being built.
No.
Right.
Yeah, it's a privilege.
So I liken it to, I don't know, the building of some of the world's great wonders. Right. So we are planning on making large format prints and having gallery expositions for sure. We're at a time where we also need to get this thing into space. So we're we're working on all of that. I'm part of an outreach team, and one of our projects is to get some of these images printed and let the public see them.
That's great. Let me ask a little bit about some of the complications that come with working with a big, agency and for the government. Have there been stumbling blocks along the way, at least, photographically or images you wanted to take that you weren't able to?
To be honest, I really haven't had any issues. There is a facility that unfortunately I think I couldn't access because of clearance, right? Mm-hmm. So that was one issue, but I worked around that.
By the way, it's okay.
Hold on. Can you talk about the working around it part?
We have a new topic for the show.
No, you can't. Okay, all right.
I did not sneak in through the back door. So
okay, fair enough.
I didn't. Just didn't get a chance to shoot in that facility, basically.
Gotcha. And you mentioned post-processing, and we didn't really talk about that. Can you talk a little bit about that aspect of it and what you do, when you're in Photoshop with some of these images? And also want to throw this in while we're here. When some of the reading I did about you, you talked about Ansel Adams and the zone system and how that really turned you on when you started photography, and you incorporate those ideas into your post-process, your digital post-process. So maybe talk about that a bit. Yeah.
Sure. I spent about, 5 years assisting a photographer that was an adherent to the zone system. So I basically managed his dark room and did a lot of film tests and camera tests. And he really showed me the importance of those types of things in terms of understanding your equipment and the materials that you're using and control, right? And it really didn't dawn on me how important it would become in digital photography, I think, until I went to the Library of Congress and looked up one of Ansel's negatives that he had donated. And I saw how flat it was compared to the print that was the popular print that was out there,
right,
or in the public. So and then going back and reading, I realized how much he actually did a lot of darkroom manipulation and that sort of thing. And at the end of the day, I think what I get from Ansel's zone system is just the idea of visualization or pre-visualization, if you will, and then control, through exposure. And then on the back end, in terms of post-processing, manipulation, subtle manipulation. And what I use is a lot of layer masking, a lot of dodging and burning, or controlled dodging and burning through layer masking and that sort of thing, to come up with some final images that really have a lot of pop, a lot of contrast, and then take advantage of the entire tonal range and all those stops, the 14 or 13 or 14 stops that the Hasselblad affords.
Yeah.
Now, are you calling down your images to a handful from each shoot and then doing all that extensive post-processing? Or are you doing the post-processing on a lot of images and then figuring out which ones you like?
So, like with probably anybody's workflow, you do some sort of global post-processing. And then there are the magic 3 frames that you have.
Gotcha.
And out of those 3, maybe 2 speak to you and 1 is near perfect because of the composition and everything. So I'll really spend a day or 2 or longer working on a single image. And you gotta like look at it and work on it, and then you leave it and come back and you see something else.
Do you have to, every image you take, do you have to submit or turn in or at least archive? Or let's say there's one that you just don't want anyone to see, and can you delete it and make it go away forever?
Delete it? That's a good question. Yeah.
I mean, I know in certain obviously new situations
and short answer is no. I mean, we keep everything, right? Obviously, if it's out of focus, too dark, too light, it's gone.
But is it gone before you submit it? Or I guess what I'm trying to think about it in terms of the process and the archival. The
right. Yeah. So that those images I do not submit. I don't archive.
Right.
Right. So everything
any
else
sharp,
gets
good
archived.
exposures. If there's a good record, that's kept. Oh, that makes sense.
It's archived.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's wonderful.
What happens after James Webb goes to space for Chris Gunn?
The lecture tour.
There's
the book, the movie.
The book, the movie. There is W First, which is the next big telescope that's being built at Goddard Space Flight Center.
Mm-hmm.
And that is more of a Hubble-sized telescope, but it's going to have the widest field of any telescope ever launched. So in terms of imaging large portions of the sky.
And how close are you to done on this project? I mean, your work.
It's launching. It's launching in 2021 from French Guiana.
Okay. Oh wow.
So I when the telescope gets shipped down to French Guiana, I get shipped down to French Guiana, and hopefully create some amazing images of the telescope being integrated into the rocket, the Ariane 5, and looking for one good launch image as well.
Why are they launching on Ariane 5?
So the European contribution to this, other than instrument packages, the European contribution is the launch. So it's being launched on an ESA rocket, basically an ESA supplied rocket.
Interesting.
And of course, the Ariane 5 is the largest vehicle that they have that'll get us where we need.
The facility that you're shooting in predominantly, a lot of these facilities have horrific lighting as far as color temperature. These industrial lights, they're terrible. They're efficient for working, but they're horrible for photography. Do you work in with controlled lighting that's more photo friendly? Are there any specific attributes to the lights that are there, or do you just work with what they hung on the ceiling?
No, I've yeah. So no, I don't work with what's hung in the ceiling, but I utilize it. It is one of the sources that's in the room. But I learned or figured out a while ago to produce some of the images that I really want to, I'm going to need to bring in my own light. So I started out with ProPhoto 7B packs, and they started to just be too heavy and cumbersome to carry up and down the stairs. I went to B1s, the battery operated packs. So always battery operated packs. And now I'm using the, what are they? The brown color Cirrus L's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They travel really well. And I'm using the 800s. So it's a little bit more punch. And then I have to, I tend to blend the ambient light of the clean rooms and facilities with the strobes if I need to.
Yeah. And did incorporating the lights, was that a bureaucratic hurdle at any point? And also, how did that, just change the aesthetic of what you were doing? Or
aesthetically, it just really just stepped up everything. It just added a whole nother dimension to the images. Of course, they look more finished. And knowing that the project's really high profile and we got to get some of these images out to the public, I think it was really necessary. Bureaucratically,
or even scientifically, for that matter. Yeah.
I mean, no. I mean, I don't think we had any issues. It's really you wait until the right time and you say, hey, I really want to step up the quality of these images, and I'm going to need some lights.
Right. Yeah, makes sense.
Do the technicians stop what they're doing while you're doing test firing, or is it pretty transparent to them?
No, no, it's not transparent to them. I know I really annoy them when I'm doing test firing.
I'll bet.
But I mean, they've gotten used to it. They've stopped calling me Flash and that kind of thing.
Paparazzi's here again.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm really cognizant of what they're doing as well. I mean, if they're doing a really sensitive operation, I will not use strobes.
Sure.
There's certain lifts and that kind of thing where using strobes might be really distracting, and I definitely don't want any mishaps blamed on me.
You need a level of coexistence there. You really do.
Yeah,
exactly. So you just have to pick your times.
Yeah. There's one shot of yours where it's a door of some size, and several scientists are positioned in a way that looks like they're, off the top of my head, looks like they're cleaning it, but it could have been many other more important aspects of their work. Can you describe that shot a little bit, and how you position those folks, and how how much of a collaborative effort that was, or how long it took?
It wasn't collaborative at all.
Okay.
It was a really lucky image.
Gotcha.
That's those doors were really heavy. That's the shipping container for James Webb.
Okay.
And the engineers and technicians there are actually trying to get those doors latched. And so I turned around. I did have the Hasselblad in my hand, and I was like, wow, look at this. Okay. And I shot it, and it actually stayed in a raw format for a while before I got back to it and realized what I had. And, went ahead and color corrected and that sort of thing. So there's no additional light in that particular image. It's one of my favorites, actually.
Yeah, that's great.
Don't you love when that happens?
Yeah, so you're using all the photo muscles. I mean, you're doing your documentary, almost you got, your news style moment there, as well as setting up much more involved shots and documentary. Do you use macro lenses when you're working on, documenting pieces and parts and things like that?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we wind up using a lot of macro photography.
My last question is, you mentioned in one of the articles I read that there's some influence of science fiction films in your work. And I was hoping you could mention maybe some of the specific science fiction films you liked and watched and how that, feeds into your work.
So, I mean, from I don't know, as long as I can remember, I've been a fan of science fiction. I'm Star Trek, the whole Captain Kirk and Spock. I mean, that used to mesmerize me when I'd come home from school and watch those episodes when I should have been doing homework.
No. You had your priorities straight.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. I mean, look where you are today. Movies. You did the right thing.
I mean, and lately the aesthetics of, I guess some of my favorite movies. Let me think for a second. I like the latest Blade Runner. I think it's beautiful. It was amazing. Prometheus. When I talk to friends, they really, I don't really like the movie, but I love the look of Prometheus. So I watch films multiple times with the sound down because I just want to look at the aesthetics of it, see how it was lit,
that's a great
and that
idea.
sort of thing. So I think I've seen Blade Runner maybe, I want to say 20, 25 times.
The original
with
one.
the sound down.
Yeah.
Well, I've done the original, but I've also done the latest one. With the sound down quite a few times.
I heard that movie Ad Astra was really good. Just as a side note, we might not keep this.
Ad Astra was really good. I think that the aesthetics were amazing.
There's a remastered version of the original Blade Runner that pops up in theaters every once in a while. It's like 8K resolution, and it's amazing. If you get a chance.
2001 Space Odyssey.
You can't help
I've seen that 11 times.
Just 11?
Including 70 millimeter at the Ziegfeld Theater and surround sound when it first came out.
Oh my goodness.
No, but you can feel that movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I see that movie in some of your shots for sure. Absolutely.
Anyway, if people want to see more of your work, where can they go? Instagram, websites, where can they find your work?
They can find my work. I'm on Instagram. It's The Light and the Lens. So that's my Instagram handle. And my website is gunphotography.com.
All right. We'll put that on. We'll link that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's great. All righty. Wonderful talking. We enjoyed it, as you can tell. We had a great time here also the past hour or so.
We found the guy with the greatest photo job ever.
That's it.
It's been a long search.
I mean, this has been fantastic to get a chance to talk to you guys. I can tell that you guys are a fan of science and space and that sort of thing. It really comes across in our conversation. It came across in our conversation, and I hope you follow this project. To be honest,
we will now. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, and I guarantee a lot of our listeners will also be tuning in to see what's going on there too. A lot of good stuff here.
This has been awesome, guys. I really appreciate it.
I'm glad. It was a pleasure having you here. It was really good, Chris.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, that is a wrap. There are a lot of people out there who love taking pictures, but for whatever reason still haven't subscribed to our show. Do you know anybody who might fit that profile? If you do, don't shame them, but do encourage them to head on over to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Overcast, or Spotify and subscribe to our show. It's free, it's easy. And tell them they can always find us on the B&H Explorer website as well as the B&H Photography Podcast Facebook group. For now, on behalf of the entire crew, including John Harris, Jason Tables, and Finn Vorenkamp's profoundly proud papa, thank you so much for tuning in today.